Welcome to this edition of Wagyu Fluff. I'm so glad you're joining me today because today I want to talk about naming your pet. You've adopted a new puppy or a kitten and you brought them home, and now it's time to figure out what to call them. Naming your pet should be fun. Now, some of you know what you're going to call them. You picked it out before you got them home. And some of you may be more like me, and I hadn't got that quite figured out just yet because there are thousands and thousands of potential names out there for your new kitty or your new puppy that you brought home with you. I want to say take some time. Feel free to take that time and narrow down your choices. Take that time to choose a name that you really want for your new puppy or kitty. You're going to be using that name with them for the rest of their life, so you should enjoy the sound of it. And I would choose a 1 to 2 syllable name. Longer names can be difficult for your dog to understand and a hassle to say over and over. Now, I am an exception to that too, but my Violet, though it's a 3 syllable name, it rolls off the tongue really fast. It also goes into that distinction of having different names for your pets that are distinctly different. Violet is very different than Millie, and Millie Violet. Now we have Elsie, though Millie and Elsie both have E's on the end, they're distinctly different enough so that each pet knows I'm talking to that pet and they're not too similar for them to get confused. And I would also avoid choosing a name that sounds very similar to a command that you plan to teach your pet. Think of Shay. That's a beautiful name, but it is very similar to stay. And Fletch is very similar to fetch. If you're going to use those commands, or you know the commands that you're going to use for your pet, choose them so that they aren't too similar. You don't want your pup to be confused, and you want them to respond to what you're teaching them. If you're adopting a new puppy and it comes from a breeder, sometimes they name the dogs and they give them 5 or 6 names. I know that that was the case when we adopted our Riley. She was our puppy who had a bad heart, and her name was Wind on the Water, and there were 3 other names after that, and it was her lineage, and that is sometimes how puppies from breeders come to you. Well, we liked Riley. We didn't like Windy, we didn't like Wind on the Water. Riley was her name, and that's what we used from the moment we brought her home, and it was a 2 syllable name, and it wasn't too long so that she got confused. Dogs have a certain amount of attention. And that's why a 1 or 2 syllable name works really, really well. Next, I want to talk about if you're adopting an adult dog, when you bring them home from the shelter, do they already have a name that they know? Or did the shelter change their name when they were brought to the shelter to be given up? Know the history of what their name was and what it is. And if you don't like it, change it to something similar. So if you have a Bailey, change it to Haley or Kaylee or something similar, because they're going to be going through a lot when they come home, and changing of the name, they will be confused for a little bit and it will be an adjustment for them. If you have your heart set on a Max or a Bailey or a Fluffy or a Princess, know that those are of the top names in popularity. And when you get to the dog park, there may be a number of dogs there with the same name. So when you're calling for Fluffy or you're calling for Max, there may be more than one dog and they may get a little bit confused. You can do a little research before you settle on a name. Some people like names that go together, like peanut butter and jelly, sugar and spice. If you're getting more than one dog at the same time, you can do it after those famous duos, Sonny and Cher. And then there's also other dog naming ideas, like dachshunds can be Shorty. You could do Happy for a jovial Met. There can be ways, there can be something descriptive about their personality that you want to name them. We once named a cat Sneezer because the first thing she did in the house was sneeze. So there's a lot of fun ideas. Famous celebrity or sports figure, Mozart or Shakespeare, maybe some scientists that you like. Do you like a certain cheese or a favorite food? My nephew named his dog pork chop once. And whatever you name your dog or your kitty, any of those new family members you're bringing in the house, make sure it's one that you like. The only thing I would say absolutely don't do is maybe something like Mr. Butthead or something that could be considered a slur. Or what do you want to yell out at the dog park or when you're calling for your dog out the back door? What do you want the neighbors hearing? I got a question through the website about what do I think about nicknames for pets. And yes, I do. I agree with nicknames. I think they're okay. And I am guilty. I call my Violet Violate because she's a latte color and I love coffee. Uh, I call Millie Mills. I call her Millicent. I call her Millsy, Millsy Woof, Woofus. I have a whole bunch of names for Millie. And now Elsie's the youngest. I'm sticking to Elsie because I really want her to get to know what her name is. So I'm really holding back on nicknames for her, but it will be L, it will be C, it will be, there's a whole way that I will be happily enough giving her her nicknames as she gets older when she really knows her name. So nicknames are something that can be fun, and it's pet names. And if you do need to change your pet's name after they've had it for a few days, go ahead and do so. I know when we bring our pets home, there have been times when a few days into it, we finally figured out what the name of our new pet was going to be, and that was the case for Elsie. At first, it was Ollie because when they handed her to us, they said, "Here he is." It was a boy, and we called her Ollie. Uh, and a few days later, when we brought her to the vet, I was like, "I don't think it's a boy." And he was like, "No, it's not a boy." I'm like, "Okay, her name is Elsie then." So we had a boy name picked out, and we picked out a girl name. There's so many potential names out there for your pet. You don't have to hurry up and pick on the day that they arrive home. Naming your pet should be fun. All right, I want to say thank you for joining me. I'm going to be having Eve on in the next week. I'm going to have an update on my Violet and her barking. I've used some of Eve's tips, so tune in, see how Violet's training is going. It's been interesting and fun, and I'm going to update Eve, and we're going to have a nice talk about with the summer holidays coming up and lost pets. All right, so ta ta for now.